Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, Memorial Day, May 25th, 2015. Casa de Rosie Jen, Rancho de Rosie Jen, Santa Rosa, USA. And again, happy Memorial Day, everyone. Yes, I am in a sundress today. It is a day, one of the 2 days a year, really, on Veterans Day and Memorial Day today. I really think it's important to sort of lift my game as a sign of respect for those who gave the full measure of their devotion and gave their lives for the cause of this country and the sake of the freedoms we enjoy, either on the battlefield, in the sea, or in the air. I often sit in bed. One of the things I enjoyed most in school, especially in college studying, was history, and particularly American history. And I often would lay in bed there and think, gee, after I would read something exciting in history, maybe about some of the battles in the Civil War or some of the turning points in World War II, and I would think to myself, wow, what if I would start playing the what if game? And it's so appropriate on a day like today to think, what if certain things hadn't happened in war and so many hundred thousands, millions of lives had not gotten thrown into the breach and sacrificed, if you will, for the country and the freedoms that we enjoy today. When people complain today about, the country's so terrible today, and the problems are so insurmountable that we face as a nation, I always go back to the what if game. And what if things had not turned out better in some of the military engagements that we were involved in? How much different and how much worse our world would probably be if we lived under a regime of a totalitarian government, or a fascist government, or a communist sort of a dictatorship, and that's what they are, equal misery for all. And I think to myself, the sacrifices of the men and women who died for this country, and the ones that we remember on Memorial Day, are the ones that prevented that from really happening, and not just for our country, but also served, as President Wilson called in World War I, an arsenal of democracy for others, the ability to sort of step into the breach for others who could not handle the load themselves, and jump in the middle of that fray and sacrifice our lives so hopefully another country could survive, or a people could prosper. So days like today have a lot of special meaning. A lot of people go to graveyards today and they try to make sense of what they're looking at. And if you've ever stood, as I have, in Hawaii, and you look over what's called the Punch Bowl Memorial there, and there's just the number of graves that you see is just staggering, and you just get chills when you think to yourself, what does this mean, and what is all these lives, all these people that did the deed were called upon, and I just get shivers up my spine. And you ride down to the airport here in San Francisco, and you see the Veterans Cemetery on the left-hand side, and your car is clicking off 1 mile and 2 miles, and all you see is just rolling hills with little cemetery markers on them, and it really brings home the ultimate price that war has for all of us. And I go back in history and I think of, what if Washington hadn't been so bold and we hadn't become independent as a nation, and the whole dominoes of everything the United States eventually stood for would the course of history would have been changed forever. Maybe for the better. I mean, who knows? But likely for the far worse. Would there have been a nation that was born and had the willingness to, when push came to shove, get into the fray, get into the fight, so that those around the world might have a better shot at living free? And I think, okay, that was worth it. And I go to the War of 1812, when the city of Washington had been burned by the British. And here's the little old city of Baltimore up the way there, and they're thinking to themselves, you know, the guys come up on horseback, you wouldn't believe it. The capital of the nation is like a blaze, all right? And guess what? They're coming up here next. And knowing that Fort McHenry was probably the only thing that stood between doom and a reconfigured United States. And all night as the British ships are out there lobbing the shells into the fort to stand firm and not to lower the flag and not to surrender. I mean, it was a lot of guts when you think about it, because you had a lot of citizens in the city behind you that did not know whether tomorrow their lives would be far different if the red, white, and blue line had not held in that fort. Or the soldiers on both sides of the Civil War believing determinedly in their heart what their causes were. And the slaughter at places like Antietam, and you think of President Abraham Lincoln having to go up and dedicate a Gettysburg Memorial up there and consecrate a graveyard. And to try to put a good spin on an agonizing war that was in no way, shape, or form anywhere near coming to a conclusion by the time he made that speech in November of 1863. So when you think about it, the cost of it is just so tremendous, and you never know when the price has been fully paid. You never know how many more men and women have to be thrown into the breach, but yet they just keep coming and fighting. And in Korea, to try to stand as a bulwark or a strong wall against communism, and guys going up to fight that war have no idea what communism even is, but they know they get the notice to go and serve, or they volunteer, and there they are in the middle of it, trapped in a place like the frozen chosen there, hemmed in by the Chinese and North Korean forces, not knowing if they're going to live or die. And of course many of them did, but the ultimate bravery and sacrifices probably made a lot of Asia what it is today, with the countries there that enjoy the freedoms that they do today. So you never really know what's going to happen when you're in a battle. And of course the Vietnam, being hemmed in at Quezon, the siege of Quezon, all the events in history, all the times that the United States tried to stand firm for the cause of good. There was a price to be paid. There were many people that did points opposed war in the course of our nation's history. But their voices were really, when the dead start to arrive and we all kind of sort of fall in line as Americans, and we all realize, some of us later rather than sooner, that the what if game is real. Because there's oftentimes we could say, what if we had never done this, or what if we had never done that? Or sacrificed the lives and thrown the lives in that we had today, how different the world might have been. And of course we'll never really know. But I suspect the world would not be as nearly as comfortable for many of us, as civilized for many of us, and probably, yes, as God-fearing for many of us, if we had not, if the United States had not been in there doing the things that it did with our troops. So today's kind of the day I want to remember those men and women who died. A lot of them are still missing in action. We'll never know. There's probably well over 100, 200,000 people in various conflicts. We're never going to know what became of them. And that also sort of disturbs me as one of the ugly little sides of war, never really knowing. So, yeah, I will have a beer. I will have my barbecue today. There's various times today I'll probably kick back and just think to myself, wow, what if? What if? All right, everybody. Happy Memorial Day.